everyone, and welcome to the OklaRoots YouTube channel. In today's tutorial, we're going over the February perfectly pieced box, and this comes to us from Me Time Delivered. So if you're new to this box, this is a monthly subscription box. It is for your embroidery machine. It is actually making quilt blocks using an embroidery machine. And if you opt for the box, every month they're going to send you a box full of goodies as well as the pattern, and you'll also have access to the digital files. You also have the option to just do the digital files every month if you don't need the extra fun stuff. But if you are new to embroidery, I highly recommend you do the box because you're going to get a little bit of thread, a little bit of material, a little bit of extras, all things you can use with all kinds of other projects, whether they're Me Time Delivered or not. So as always, thank you so much to Me Time Delivered for sponsoring today's video. I love making these every single month. I love quilting. Quilting is how I started sewing. I'm a quilter at heart. I don't have a whole lot of time to do quilt blocks, so this way every month I am making something. It's always a little bit tricky and fun to figure out what to do with these blocks each month. I don't have a project to show you with the block this month because I am going to hold on to them and I'm going to incorporate them with some other things to build a bigger project soon. But I did want to show you, I haven't opened this box yet, but I did download the file and I already tested out the block on my embroidery machine using my own material, and I want to show you what it looks like. Now, these are fun blocks. So it looks like a bunch of triangles, right? You can see it's a series of triangles, and while on its own, it's kind of like, okay, triangles. When you piece it together with other blocks, you create these really cool shapes. So once we go to the top-down camera, I'm going to show you that. We're going to kind of go through different options. I've made 4 of these blocks, and I am going to piece them together at some point, but I haven't decided on a pattern yet, so you guys will have to help me figure out which layout to use for this. As usual, I will be doing this embroidery tutorial on my Brother PE800, which is a great beginner level embroidery machine if you're looking to get into embroidery but you don't want to spend a lot of money on a multi-needle machine. I highly suggest the Brother PE800. It is a fantastic machine just for basic embroidery projects. You have a big enough hoop where you can make a lot of different things. But if you decide, oh my gosh, I love embroidery, I do want to invest in the multi-needle, I believe you'll still use this machine. And if you decide you don't need it, you just want to use your bigger machine, it is a very popular machine to sell. So I think it's kind of like the winning beginner embroidery machine in my personal opinion. So if you're new to the OklaRoots YouTube channel, please consider clicking subscribe down below. If at any point you like this video, please give it a like. Any questions, comments, shoutouts, anything at all, leave them down in the comments section. This is a very, very quick block to make, so there will not be timestamps for the video, but we will first unbox the box, get set up, and then we will just stitch out the block and I'll show you how to trim it down and then we'll be done. All right, guys, let's get started. All right, so let's dive into this month's box. Open it up. It says February 2023, perfectly pieced. Flip it over, and it gives you lots of little tips. It kind of gives you an overview of what's in the box, the colors. Oh, this is going to be a pretty one. Look at this fabric, guys. I love the fabric. Oh, it's so bright. Oh, it's so bright. I love that. So this says, when things are in pieces, quilt them together. Absolutely. So let's pull apart these fabrics. Oh, I love this. We have this beautiful floral fabric here. Hot pink. Oh, this is like a... Okay, so this is not a cotton. What is this? It's a pink velveteen. Well, that's cool. That feels amazing. What are we going to do with that? And then we have a green cotton, like a light green cotton, a white, and then we have this here. Okay, so this is an Essex speckle. So it has like little speckles in it and it's got like a looser weave. Very, very cool. I love this. I love that it's not all quilt cotton, that it's a lot of different types of material. That's so cool. Okay, next, probably my favorite, honestly, is the thread. Every month they send you a different color thread. I don't have this color. I love this. And after a few months, you've actually accumulated a good amount of thread because the project uses very little thread. So you're going to be able to use this on countless other projects. Okay, what is this? This looks like zippers. Well, these are adorable. Look at these zippers. They're lace zippers. I have honestly never worked with these before. Okay, we're going to have to do a project with these zippers because these are amazing. And then if you have the box, you'll also have a printout for your block, and it will give you cut measurements and then instructions on how to piece it together, and then different, information about different size blocks. You can see there's a 2-inch, 4-inch, 6-inch, 8-inch blocks. On the Brother PE800, you can do the 2-inch and 4-inch. But if you're going to use the 6-inch or 8-inch ones, you're going to need a embroidery machine that has a bigger hoop size. Okay, so before we dive in, I want to show you the 4 blocks that I already made. And I'm going to show you a few different arrangements. So using that fun print, we can do something like this that has this beautiful star in the middle. So that's option 1. Another option is to kind of line them up like this. So we almost have these little pink diamonds going like that. So that's option 2. And then here's another option, which just kind of reminds me of like shattered glass, because you can see we have these blue triangles, but they're not really meeting up with each other. So it's just a very like fractured look. So that's option 3. So let me know down below which option you think we should sew these together. I'm probably going to use it on some sort of like a tote bag or a larger pouch, something like that. I haven't decided yet, but first I need to figure out the layout. But you see what's cool is these are just triangles, but depending on how you put them together, you can create all these new shapes and images. Okay, now the hard part. How are we going to set up this one? Okay, I see how the pattern does it. The pattern uses the pink and the floral and the white and then this one here. So obviously we want to do it differently. Let's see. I think let's go big. Instead of the white at positions 2, 4, and 6, we're going to use the floral at positions 2, 4, and 6. And then we'll use this green and this blue. I'm trying to decide if I want to use the pink or if I want to use the dark. I don't even think I'm going to use the white. Let's use the pink. Let's go pink. Okay, so this is going to be like our neutral background, and then these are going to be the 3 different colors for the triangles. So I'm going to quickly cut these up into the rectangle sizes per the pattern. Okay, so I have all of my cuts already made. I also have a cut of batting, and this is because we're going to quilt on this. The hoop size I'm using today is a 5" by 7" hoop, meaning I can embroider anything up to that size. The stabilizer I'm using is from Kimberbell, and it's amazing. I highly recommend it. It's the ultralight mesh cutaway. It is fantastic. It does not tear as you're pulling on it. It's sturdy, but it's also very lightweight. Love this stuff. If you need to, you can use this Kimberbell paper tape. It's fantastic at holding all the pieces down. You can sew over it. It doesn't gum up your needle. It comes off really easily. It's really good tape for embroidery. And embroidery scissors are a must. These are curved. Like you can see, this is going to make it easy for us to trim everything. And then you're going to need a small iron because we are going to be ironing these pieces inside the hoop, meaning we're not going to take this out. A big iron will not fit in there. You don't want to accidentally melt your stabilizer or anything like that. So a small Cricut iron is my suggestion. So to get started, we're just going to cut our stabilizer. So I like to just lay my hoop on top of my stabilizer to make sure I have a little bit of overhang on all 4 edges, and then just trim it like that. Lay your bottom hoop up, put your stabilizer over your bottom hoop, and then grab your inner hoop. And make sure if you have little arrows or anything that need to line up, you find those. And then just insert the inner hoop into the outer hoop, press down. Make sure it's a nice tight fit, and then tighten up that hoop. All right, I'm going to install the new thread, and then we're going to get started. So once you have your design loaded and your hoop installed, we're going to run the first step, which is just going to be a trace on our stabilizer, letting us know where we need to put our batting. So for this next step, we're going to put our batting over that square. Make sure your batting is completely covering all 4 of the stitch lines for that square. And now we're going to tack down our batting. If you need to use tape here to hold it down, go ahead and do that. Once you have this tacked down, what we want to do now is just trim off the edges of the batting. So anything overhanging that inner square, I like to just pull up on the edge gently and just run my scissor right along next to the stitches. I'm not cutting the stitching, I'm not cutting the stabilizer, I'm only cutting the batting. So now we're going to insert this hoop back into the machine, and the next step is going to stitch out placement for all of our pieces of fabric. Now we're going to grab our fabric piece 1, and we're going to lay it right side up, covering this bottom right triangle. Make sure you're covering all the way out to the stitch lines that extend further past the batting, and you're covering the diagonal line for this triangle. So now we're going to stitch down fabric piece 1. So now take the hoop away from the machine, and we need to trim this down. The fabric that's overhanging on top, so above that stitch line, we're going to trim that down. So just pull it up and carefully cut close to the stitching. You don't have to cut right at the stitching, just get close to it. Now take fabric piece 2 and lay it right side down, so right sides together with fabric piece 1, lining up the long edge with that stitch line you just made, right along there. There we go. Once again, if you want to use tape here to make sure this doesn't move around, go ahead and add some tape to the sides. But now we're going to stitch down fabric piece 2. Now remove the hoop from the machine and flip fabric piece 2 right side up. And give it a gentle finger press right along that seam, and then grab your small iron and press it nice on that seam. You don't have to put it there for too long, you just want to get nice and crisp. Now we're going to put this back in the machine. And now we're going to stitch down placement for fabric piece 3. Remove the hoop once again, and let's lift up on the top piece of fabric piece 2 and trim down. So now let's grab our fabric piece 3 and lay that right side down, lining up the long edge with that stitch line. And now put the hoop back in the machine, and let's now stitch down fabric piece 3. Let's flip up fabric piece 3, and I don't know if you're supposed to iron this or not. Let me see. Yeah, it looks okay. I'm gonna give it a very quick press. There we go. And now let's put this back in the machine and stitch down placement for fabric 4. Let's lift up the top of fabric 3 and trim down close to that stitch line. Then grab fabric 4 and lay it right side down, lining up the long edge with the stitches. And let's stitch down fabric 4. Now flip fabric 4 right side up, grab your iron and press it down. Now we're going to stitch down placement for fabric 5. So now let's trim down this excess from fabric 4. Grab your fabric 5 and lay that right side down, long edge against the stitches. And now let's stitch down fabric 5. Now let's flip up fabric 5 and press along that seam. And now we're going to stitch down placement for fabric piece 6. Let's pull up on this top overhang and trim off the excess fabric. And then take your final piece of material, fabric 6, and lay it right side down, long edge against the stitches. And now let's stitch down fabric 6. And finally, let's flip up fabric 6 and press along that seam so that the whole block is nice and flat. All right, put it back in the machine. This next step is going to stitch the outer square. So this is going to be the finished size of your block, and it's going to hold down all the edges. The last step is the quilting step. This is completely optional, but I think it looks really cool, especially if you're using a thread that is contrasting to your material. So once it's completed its quilting, you can take the stabilizer out of the hoop. And now you want to trim down your block. Now this exterior square here, it should be the finished size. It should be 4.5 by 4.5 because it is a 4-inch by 4-inch block. So with the seam allowance, it's 4.5 by 4.5. I like to grab a ruler though and just line up my 4.5-inch marks with those stitches. And then I'm going to use a rotary cutter to trim down the excess. There we go. And then I can flip this so that I can measure 4.5 inches from my cut edges and then trim down the remaining excess. And now I have a perfect little block, and honestly, I love how this looks. I love how colorful this is. Alrighty, what do you think? So here's one. Here's one that's more like what the pattern suggested, with like one print and then more of like a neutral palette. And then here's like a really colorful palette. So the thing I like about the colorful palette is that if you wanted to go with that like shattered glass look, it would look so cool. I mean, it's just like glass of color. I think it would just look really cool. So however you decide to do this, I hope you guys love it because this is a really fun one. I love abstract quilting. I love that. I love like just lines and stuff. I also love when our quilt blocks like make a shape, you know, like a Dougie or something. But I don't know. This is a really fun one to play with, especially if you have a lot of scraps of colorful material and then throw in some neutrals in there to create all kinds of new designs. I think this is a fun block. So thank you so much for sewing with me today. I hope you're having a great day. Have a fantastic rest of your week. Get out there and make something. Bye, guys.